you? Haven't you learned anything from that guy who gives those sermons at church? Captain what's his name? We live in a society of laws. Why do you think I took you to all those police academy movies? For fun? Well, I didn't hear anybody laughing, did you? Except that guy who made sound effects. Hog, hog. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Stay out of my booze.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It's What's Your Favorite Movie? A podcast amongst a sea of slightly superior podcasts. Thank you for joining us on the program. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to stop what you're doing and dial up What's Your Favorite Movie on your iPhone, Android, or BlackBerry device. My name is Ed South, and I enjoy talking to movies. I talk to movies, they don't talk back. I enjoy talking movies, and joining us today in the studio, in the What's Your Favorite Movie Nissan Sentra Studios, is none other than our good friend, Producer Brian, back on the show. Producer Brian, how are you?
It is me. I am here in the actual studio.
In the actual Nissan Sentra Sleepmaster What's Your Favorite Movie Studios, brought to you by Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
I have to say, I've never slept so peacefully in a Nissan Sentra while dinosaurs chased me.
And
it's a
folks,
thrill to be here.
It is a thrill to have you here in the studio once again. You've been in the studio once before.
It's like coming home, especially the part where I was in a different country and then I came home.
Oh, you're jumping ahead. We're going to talk about that in just a minute.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. But first, folks, the last couple episodes, we were plugging a mailbag segment where we asked you to write in and give us questions, comments, and I'd like to thank everybody for taking us up on that. And we'll take just a moment here and read all the letters that we got, all of the letters. So here we go. All right, and thank you very much for all those letters that we got. It was an amazing response, Brian.
I enjoyed that. Can we read through them again?
It was like the scene in Miracle on 34th Street where they bring all the mailbags into the courtroom at the end and
like
dump
that.
all the letters onto the judge's desk, except when they opened the bag, there was nothing in them. That's what it was like.
It was like that.
It was like that.
And no one in the courtroom.
And unlike the movie, after that experience, I no longer believed in Santa Claus. It was so sad. So thanks for writing in, guys, and I appreciate that. And, of course, as always, you can find us on Twitter at WIF Movie Podcast, where you can or cannot ask us questions. Also, you cannot send us mail at favemoviepodcast@yahoo.com.
So you're saying you didn't get any of my questions that I emailed?
I didn't. What were your questions?
It was things like, how do you feel about movies?
I like them.
Tell me about movies you saw. That's more of a statement, but just trying to interact.
I was wondering if the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, what do they do with them when they're not filming the movie?
I worry about their treatment, because you always hear about the animals when they're not performing, treated poorly. And I would hate to think that was true of Jurassic, because those guys are a lot of fun.
Let me say this, speaking of the ethical treatment of animals. If you're running PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and you're doing a podcast...
Yeah.
I guess if you want to call it the PETA podcast, that's fine. But I would have called it the PETA cast. That's just me.
Just save some time for everybody.
And call it the PETA cast. So, Brian, you were born and raised in the United States of America.
That sounds right.
That sounds right, to your recollection. Recently, though, you underwent a little bit of an adventure.
I have undergone such a thing.
You piled up the kids in the car.
I did.
And moved them to Ireland.
I did. There was also a wife involved.
Yes.
And there was only one child, but that's basically accurate. We did all pile into a car and drive directly across the ocean.
To Ireland in your hover car. And you were there for business reasons that we will not discuss at this moment in juncture. correct?
Yes, that does make it sound like I was fleeing the IRS.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
accurate,
No,
sure.
Yes. You had a little trouble. The gun went off when it wasn't supposed to. Needless to say, your name is
Listen.
now Seamus O'Brien, and you live in Ireland, and you've never been to the United States before.
Podcast production is a dangerous business sometimes, and it's complicated.
So you went there for your job.
I went there for work.
Yes, for work. Let's say that. That does not involve silencers or
Correct.
dressing up in
or audits.
or audits. So
Far, at least.
tell us, how is it consuming media in
Yes.
Ireland? How is it different besides everything starts with leprechauns and Darby O'Gill is on 10 times a day?
Yeah. So basically, you don't, has been my experience. For a while, I had a background on my phone that was just the TV screen saying, "Not available in your region," which has sort of become my new mantra over there. Yeah. Mantra. It's been both.
Both?
And we've had some problems getting the American television, the American movies. We do have Netflix, but there are occasional changes. For example, you might have a friend named Ed who texts you and lets you know that Jaws 2, 3, and 4 are available on the Netflix, and you might go to Netflix very excited to see these films and then find out, sadness, these films not for you. We do have some things that, most of it overlaps. There are some things in Irish Netflix that aren't on the U.S. You just don't get Hulu. That was weird for me.
Hulu.
It's on the internet. So it seems like if you went there, you would just have Hulu. But instead, Hulu says, wait a second, you're standing in Ireland right now, aren't you?
So you can't
watch the Hulu.
You can't watch Jaws 2, 3, or 4 on Netflix in Ireland?
Not at the time.
Is Ireland aware that Jaws 4, also known as Jaws the Revenge, that time it was personal?
I don't think they know that time it was personal. My guess is they figured this time it's business as usual.
And they were like,
guess what,
folks?
Not
guess
the
what,
case.
Irish government? Not okay. It was personal. By the way, in Jaws 4, the shark follows them in an airplane from New England to the Bahamas. And it is one of the greatest moments in all of shark following history.
I think so.
I got to say, on a personal note, talking about Jaws and movies, and Jaws is a movie, my favorite of the Jaws quadrilogy is, what do we call 4 movies?
I'd call it a quadrilogy. As often as I possibly could.
My favorite of the 4 is Jaws 3.
And everyone on Earth would agree with you.
Yes.
Case closed.
Just like my favorite Batman is Batman and Robin.
It.
But I love Jaws 3. That was the one I saw a lot when I was a kid, and it's about amusement parks, and I love that one, whatever. So was recently in SeaWorld in Orlando, where Jaws 3 or 3D was filmed. And I tracked down many of the shooting locations. I watched it before we went, and went and made sure I stood in Neptune's Undersea Kingdom, as it's called in the movie.
Excellent.
It's just called like Sharks now or whatever. And saw where Leah Thompson got attacked on the bumper boats, and so many great cinematic moments of the Jaws universe happen right there in Jaws 3.
Now, I don't have a problem with 3. It's not the first one I would reach for on the shelf if I was going to rewatch a Jaws. But if I ever had the opportunity actually to see it in 3D...
Yes, I was going to say.
I would be all over that immediately. That would be incredible.
That is near the top of my sad bucket list.
Yes.
To see Jaws 3D in 3D. But one of the things I love about it, watching it now, is that not only the 3D effects probably horrible, but when you watch them flat, they just don't make any sense. Like the camera lingers on a fish head floating at your face. That's for like
first thing I thought
2
of
minutes.
when you said that.
And there's one where they go into like the King Neptune's underground cave, and the camera just lingers on a dragon with its tongue sticking out at you for like a minute. It's like, why? So good.
This will be blowing their minds in the theater.
I would reach out to try to touch Jaws, as you do when you go see a 3D movie. And if you ever go to like a 3D movie at an amusement park where people have never seen, half of the audience has never seen a 3D movie and stuff comes out and everybody in front of you is like reaching, I want to touch Mickey.
I can grab those bubbles.
Yes. So Ireland, you can't find anything. You want to watch something. I imagine it's kind of like on a computer when you're trying to do something and you keep getting that like dong sound, like dead end. That's what like watching TV.
That's it. I'd like to watch this series if I just pull up Hulu, the donk. Yeah, you just get that sound effect all the time.
You may not have it. And also, so what do they watch on Irish TV over there?
Here's the thing about Batman and Robin. I'm not going to talk about Batman and Robin. It wasn't just that was your favorite. It's that you came out of that movie going, they finally got it right. Anyways.
Look, have we talked about this on the show before? I feel like maybe we have.
Maybe it's been covered.
To me, Batman was... I've learned to progress from this theory, but... I was like in my 20s when Batman and Robin came out, but at that point in time, to me, Batman was the old TV show. Right. That was Batman, and the only other variation of it I knew was the cartoons, which were derivative of the TV show. So the fourth movie is the closest to the old TV show. Yeah, and I came out of it like, yeah, they nailed it! And then, a day later... You're wrong, Ed. They did not. Like, I seriously remember sitting in there and going, thank God they finally got it right.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely have had that experience where I came out of something going like, oh, man, and it was amazing. Isn't that great? And then the next day, the internet, like, knocks on my door and goes, hey, so bad news about everything you love.
The next day, it's when you get in the car. Like, now, when I saw Batman and Robin, it was like, oh, I saw it, and go home, go to bed, get up the next day, go to work or school or wherever I was at that point in time, and then like, hey, did you see Batman? 24 hours before you start getting it in. Now you get in your car and there's like a notification. The movie you saw sucks. 2.0 on IMDb.
We're like a few months from just like watching a movie premiere for the first time ever, and the screen's just filling with angry face emojis live in real time as people hate it.
We're pulling this movie from the theater.
Right, just to make sure.
They could. I mean,
everyone pull out your phones and press 1 now if you just immediately want to be refunded for your tickets and leave.
Press smiley face.
I thought I was enjoying this.
We'll probably get to a point where you can use your cell phone to comment and it'll like scroll up on the screen and I don't know why anyone would want that, but it feels like we're heading that way.
True.
True.
Somebody was just saying that about books. And it's not a books podcast, but it's a similar kind of idea where it's like, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could be reading a book and like people's comments and passages they liked or like other people are underlining text as you were reading it and stuff, and somebody was just like, stop trying to disrupt books. Nobody wants that.
Brian, please save that conversation for our sister podcast.
Yes.
What's your favorite book? Not hosted by me.
It's the novelization of Star Wars. Oh, we're not doing that now? Okay.
Okay, and then how is going to the cinema different in Ireland? They call it cinema.
You nailed it. That's it.
We forgot to make sure to look up that one movie that you saw advertised with like the two guys in the car or something, and it was...
Oh, my God.
What was it called?
Oh, I don't remember their names. It's like Irish TV personalities, and they got their own movie. And anytime that happens in the U.S., anytime there's that kind of leap, it's like, let's give these wacky characters from a commercial, a feature film, like that kind of thing. Of course, we would have to see that. It was the Irish equivalent of that, which just made it an extra layer more bizarre.
It was the
Irish... But since we don't know the title at all, everyone enjoy that
the Irish version of Crocodile Hunter Collision Course or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, by the way, I was at a yard sale the other day, and the guy had Crocodile Hunter Collision Course in a box of VHSs, and then he also had another copy in his DVD box. It's like you really went double dipped into.
Speaking of double dipping on the Crocodile Hunter, I did recently rewatch that movie.
As did I.
Oh, buddy, did it stand up 100%. Yeah? I enjoyed that just as much the second time around. Oh, it was so good.
I liked it better the second time, but it was not as good as it should have been, or as I had completely mapped out in my head how it should have went.
I wish that might need to be an entire other podcast that just outlines the vision that was in your head for a Crocodile Hunter movie, which you started outlining, I think, before it was announced. It was just like, you know who would be great to have a theatrical vehicle?
Yes.
Get Steve Irwin on there. I loved that for his part in it, they just stuck exactly with what he was good at and didn't have to stretch outside of that very much. The parts that don't involve him drag a little bit or don't work as well, but they don't hang around very long. He's back to doing his thing pretty soon, so I love it.
So if you just joined us, we're talking about the 20-year-old Crocodile Hunter movie, or what's your favorite movie?
Great time to start listening right now.
Yes, I know. They don't really do that.
If you somehow fumbled your phone in such a way that you are now...
Crocodile Hunter Collision Course. What year was that? Like 2000? I should know that off my head.
We're in...
2001,
sure.
something like that.
I would say 2001 or 2.
In my version, it starts off with Steven.
Is it?
What's her name?
Terry
in
Terry
bed.
Irwin. Yeah.
Sleeping. It's still a family film.
Sure.
And are they awakened? Are they awakened by an alarm clock? No, they're awakened by the giraffe sticking its head in the window and licking him gently. Yes. All right, mate. All right, that's enough. That's enough.
All right, I'm awake.
That's all right. Brian, speaking of movies, you recently watched a television series based on a movie.
I did.
And how was 9 to 5, the series? Was that everything you remembered it to be?
It packs all the laughs of the feature film and more.
No, of course, we're talking about Cobra Kai.
Yes.
On the YouTube Red platform. However, you would like to very quickly point out you did not subscribe to YouTube Red to watch that, correct?
So here's the thing about YouTube Red and how it's not available in Ireland.
It's not available in the United States either. It's just a concept that they would like you to think. But
I spent a lot of time thinking that a couple of guys had made that series just for me.
So Cobra Kai is a follow-up to the Karate Kid series, and it takes all 4 of the original films, not the newer Jaden Smith or whatever his name is.
No, the remake. However, Will Smith is credited as a producer on every episode.
He's got that
of the Cobra Kai series because he owns just a tiny piece of it from the remake. Mm-hmm. So like his hand is in it, but it was basically if I remember right from the interview with the guys that did Cobra Kai, it was basically that they just had to sit down with some representative of Will Smith and say, like, we want to do this. I'm like, okay, you guys have a blast. We're not going to get in your way.
Right. They pitched it to Will, and he was like, oh, yeah.
That's right. He freestyled his approval at the moment.
It used to be a time when, I would say there was a time, like maybe a year ago, when a show was getting rebooted and everyone, the idea of like, here's a TV show based on an old movie, or here's an old show coming back, and everyone was like, oh, that's going to be horrible. But they've knocked it out of the park on several occasions now with Roseanne and Will and Grace. I almost said Will and Smith, but Will and Grace. And here's a series based on 4 old movies. It's not
a remake. It's a direct continuation of all the old films.
And it was good.
And that's the amazing thing. It was actually good. And then I rewatched it with my wife, who has seen Karate Kid just because everybody has at some point somewhere along the way. She was not invested in it in the ridiculous way that I was, and completely got into the new characters, loved what they did with the old characters. I don't know why it was actually good. They didn't have to, but somebody...
What the heck?
And that's what it is. What the heck? The people involved clearly wanted to make something and cared about that universe, and that shows through.
It's one of those things where you can tell they wanted to make this, and they had an idea, and the idea wasn't just... let's bring back the Karate Kid.
It wasn't, all right, where's 2 writers not doing something? You guys, you got the Karate Kid thing now. Okay,
sure.
Dave, what should we Karate Kid?
Instead of karate, he's now into yoga, and he works at a mall and texts people. Malls are a thing. Malls are hip, and then I had to include that.
Of course.
It is why we're taking... I'll announce the project I'm working on. That's why we're taking years to perfect it before we release Mannequin, the series, too.
You would have to.
craftmacaroniandcheese.com will be the platform where you can watch all 23 streaming episodes of Mannequin the series.
You know, they think it can't be done, but Ed, we can build this thing together. Standing strong.
Yes.
Forever.
Good times. So, Cobra Kai, thumbs up. Ralph Macchio's in it.
He is. William Zabka.
Mr. Miyagi's dead.
Mr. Miyagi is dead, but is still very much a part of the series and in the spirit.
You can't kill Miyagi!
Of Daniel's journey.
And the bad guy is the same?
The bad guy is Johnny Lawrence, William Zabka coming back, although kind of fills in more of the role of the kind of protagonist in this one. They have kind of a different angle into that world, more through his perspective.
A different je ne sais quoi, if you will.
Exactly. Except I don't know exactly what that
is. His mother in it?
You ready for spoilers?
Uh-oh, yes. His mother's dead.
His mother is in it, same actress, and she is amazing.
Are there other people also back in it? I assume Hilary Swank's in it from the fourth, the most important of the trilogy.
She does not appear. I think they said they would love to bring her in. It's all the films of the original 4 are considered canonical, although, and this is probably the place for it, but I'm still not going to get into the whole deal with Miyagi's first name because it's mentioned in Next Karate Kid and it's different in Cobra Kai. But
maybe they got it wrong.
Maybe they did. There are many references to Elizabeth Shue's character and a lot of clips, flashbacks from the old movies and stuff like that. So she's still a part of it. She's not actually in the new one. It would be awesome if she came back for season 2, which they've already announced because the first one was the first gigantic hit that YouTube Red ever had.
Don't hold your breath for another YouTube Red. What if in season 2 they brought Elizabeth Shue back because the Karate Kid needed a babysitter?
That would be quite the adventure.
So when the Karate Kid came out in '84, I was 10. 11. You were younger.
A little bit.
Did you see it when it came out? In the theater?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did, yes.
That didn't even blip on my radar. That came out, I was like, oh, drama, not interested, pass. But you've been a big Karate Kid fan from day one. That's always been a big thing with you.
Pretty much. I mean, the first film is just great, and it's a classic for reasons.
I only saw it recently, within the last 2 years. I think is the first time I saw it, and then I was like, "How have I not been watching this? Why did I not watch this every afternoon?"
Is great because nostalgia carries so much of the impact of a film, and sometimes you pick something up, decades later.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really get the context and all behind it. So it's so satisfying when you're like, oh, no, this is great. Why? Where has this been? All this Elizabeth Shue goodness I was missing. And
I love Elizabeth Shue in Babysitter.
And everything.
Which is 87, so you take it back a few years.
Yeah.
And she's still adorable and awesome. And
she was great in that.
And adventurous and whatnot. Cobra Kai on YouTube Red.
And I'll do the annoying internet thing. There's 10 episodes, season 1 of Cobra Kai, but episode 5, will blow your mind. It was so good. That was the one where I was actually cheering out loud and just couldn't believe how far the series had exceeded my expectations.
Was there something recently that we both watched where YouTube Brown was the joke? Wasn't that? Was that on Kimmy Schmidt?
I think that's Kimmy. I'm pretty sure that's Kimmy Schmidt.
He was trying to sell his show, The Capist, to
YouTube Brown.
YouTube Brown.
Correct.
Excellent.
Titus Andromedon.
Brian,
one of the greats.
Would you like to talk about Star Wars while you're here?
Oh, for 21 minutes or so, I think I could.
Brian's producer. Brian is our resident Star Wars fanatic and also expert.
I don't know if it's ever come up, but I enjoy Star Wars.
Did you see it when you were little, or you just saw it recently, right?
It's more of a recent thing. Were there old movies, in the 90s?
Yes. The first one was called Jar Jar Menace. And so, since last you were here, we have 2 Star Wars films to catch up on and get your opinion and whatnot on. And first is 2017's Star Wars The Last Jedi, episode 8, right?
Correct.
8.
It is episode 8.
What did you think of The Last Jedi from your Star Wars fandom? Because well, go ahead.
So here's the thing.
Start the timer.
Yeah. So I fit a certain demographic on paper. So, and the problem with The Last Jedi is because there has been a very small but extremely vocal backlash, it's been hard to bring any legitimate complaint or nitpick or any kind of criticism against the movie, because as soon as somebody says, all right, Last Jedi, what'd you think? And I go, well, people go, oh, you're one of those guys.
So what's the backlash?
The backlash is that you have, and it really is, I forget the data, but somebody was talking about the actual data that they did some research recently. And it is just...
Data from Star Trek? Was he in it?
And he has feelings now.
Yes.
No, it really is like a tiny, tiny percentage of the fandom that had this extremely negative reaction, but they're calling for remakes, their claims of ruined childhoods, and all the complaints are just the stupidest. It's all along the lines of like, oh, there's girls in it, and just shut up. It's just the worst. Brings down the whole fandom.
So there are legit complaints that there's
there are issues,
too many girls in...
No, there's not legit complaints about too many girls, but there's just complaints about kind of the... I have some nitpicks with the storytelling and everything else. I also think that a lot of what happened in Last Jedi was like some of my favorite Star Wars stuff I've ever seen on the screen. There's a lot that was great.
Like when Chewbacca ate the space owl. That was cool.
That was good. Well...
Did you like the part where they went in the red room and you thought something awesome was going to happen, but it didn't?
There was actually a lot of that kind of in that movie. And here's a very specific nitpick that I'm going to dive into, just because I know you enjoy comedy and comedies.
Do I?
And talking about them and critiquing them, breaking them down. Rian Johnson, so one of the complaints was too many jokes in the movie. Too jokey. You can't have jokes in Star Wars. Of course you can have jokes in Star Wars. It's fine. A lot of the jokes were pretty solid. But
the first three, the prequels, suffer from being almost joyless. Like there's a lot of
in a lot of parts, they're like overly serious, and
nobody eats a space owl.
Nobody eats a space owl. But that's the thing with Ryan, is that he does the good jokes, but then he hangs on just like a beat too long on every single one. So you have like Chewbacca's going to eat the space owl. They're porgs. He knows they're porgs. He's going to eat the porg. He looks down. All the little porgs are looking up at him. Ah, that's good. You get it. Right. But then he has to, like, kind of grumble and turn around like, well, now I'm going to settle in and take a really big bite of this. Oh, and then it's an even cuter porg. Yes. You don't have to go in twice on that. Like, you had it, and that pretty much happens with every joke in the
There was a couple
series.
of dopey moments,
Here are the things. Now we're going to just dive into spoiler territory, in case you couldn't tell already.
If you haven't seen it, it's available on Netflix in America.
It is. Maybe even in Ireland. I'll have to look that up. But I loved The Force Awakens.
Yes.
Loved it.
So good.
Saw it 8 times in the theater. I probably said that last time I was here. And I thought it raised a lot of good questions that I was excited for Last Jedi to answer. And it felt like, and I'm sure this wasn't the intention, but it felt like Last Jedi basically went, I don't care about that stuff. I want to tell this other story. So it kind of felt like in improv, they always say like, oh, you're not supposed to say no. You're supposed to say yes and keep it going. And it kind of felt like that deadening of momentum where somebody started an interesting story thread and somebody was like, now this thing. So
it did not seem like the sequel to the movie that I had loved 2 years earlier.
And a lot of the thought behind that, people were saying, well, Force Awakens was kind of derivative, and it was. And it was, I think, deliberate. It had to be. And they did need to do something different, but people have been saying, like, they got to get away from the Skywalkers and just, like, leave all that stuff behind and just break out and do something new if Star Wars as a whole is going to continue to grow and go on. Which is absolutely right. But that problem corrects itself. There's only one left, and the Skywalker saga is done. Right. They've been telling it for 40 years, so to kind of shrug at episode 8 out of 9, and I don't know, that felt very weird to me. So things like Rey kind of turns out to be nobody. And I feel pretty confident they're going to reverse that in 9 and put a little something back kind of into her backstory. But as far as we know right now, she's kind of like, meh, just a person. Meh. And that's fine, I think, if they introduced her that way. If they had said, hey, we're doing Force Awakens Episode 7, it's a new trilogy, and there's this new hero, and she's just kind of this daughter of junk traders, but from these humble origins, finds out she has this, like, interesting destiny in the story or whatever. Totally cool. I never would have been like, no, she has to be a Skywalker. But when you spend an entire movie that's basically the plot is, what is the significance of this girl because it's something.
Right.
And then in the second one they go, it's like, well, I didn't really bring that baggage in with me. I only care about that because the entire last movie told me to care about that. So it just felt a little weird. It just felt kind of disjointed.
How could they the film, to me, the film's biggest falling point, how could they have worked more R2-D2 into it?
You have been shafted on R2 in a few films now.
Yes.
A cameo, like I think a single beep in Rogue One, maybe.
Right.
Not a lot of action. Like an important role, but not a big role in Force Awakens. He was in a robo-coma for most of it.
Robo-coma.
Yeah.
Which is also coming out soon, Robo-coma.
Looking forward to that one. And again, kind of an important part, but a very small role in this one as well.
Yes.
Got to get more R2 in there.
I loved Force Awakens.
Yep.
I did not like Rogue One. I was
all right with Rogue One.
I was pumped for Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I will say, disclaimer, that going into it, although I was ready to see it, it was like December, it was like 2 or 3 days before Christmas, and I was running on fumes because, backstory, I run Christmas in this house, and I'm sorry, at my house down the road from the studio here.
Right.
I was exhausted from wrapping and shopping and Christmas specials and
constantly
whatnot.
Running back and forth between the house and the studio.
It's just ridiculous.
It's a lot.
And of course there was snow on the ground and whatever. A couple of days before Christmas, Santa's elves asked me to come and help deliver presents, and it was just a great... I don't know what that means. So I was exhausted, and it didn't suck me in near the beginning, and I was just like lost, and I don't know what's going on, and I don't care. And then they get to like that red room, and you think something awesome is going to happen, and I'm sure the red room has a name and a playset. I don't know.
I'm sure it does.
Okay, and and then it was just like, what? And then I'm like, why isn't R2-D2 doing more?
Right. And
the jokes did feel kind of hit you over the head, like whatever. But I mean, I don't know.
The other, like, the big thing is the Luke situation, which is that anytime there's a major character death, I tend to be pretty hard on it. Right. I'm going to go through every little bit of the story and see, like, is this something that had to happen? Is this something that was an integral part of the story? Or did you just kind of do it? Because if it wasn't a major part of the telling of that story, I'm going to call BS and say that it was either just for shock value, like you get a lot in Walking Dead or whatever else, or you just did it because you thought you had a neat idea or whatever. But it's gotta serve a story. And I was the only person on Earth who went into Force Awakens going, Han probably comes out fine. Han Solo's good, right, guys? It'll be fine, even though it you see it coming a million miles away when he goes out on the bridge to confront Kylo. Right. And some people afterwards...
I gasped when it happened.
Oh, yeah.
I don't...
it was shocking. Yeah. And it hurt a lot. I didn't want to lose Han like that, because that's my... Star Wars, and he's one of the main three. But some people afterwards were complaining and saying, why did he go out there? That was dumb. He should have used the explosives and, sacrificed himself and blown up, then had, a hero's death or whatever. But the thing is, anybody could have done that. Chewie, Finn, Rey, any of the characters could have done something like that. Han was the only character in the entire thing that could have gone out on that bridge. He had to go out on the bridge because it was his son. the whole story was leading up to that moment. And it was heartbreaking, but it all made sense. And it was a great end to that character's tale. Now we go over to Luke at the end of Jedi. He does this incredible thing. He's very tired afterwards. And then the music swells and he just fades away for reasons. I guess because it was so hard to do. But I could edit the movie now on my phone and make a version where Luke doesn't fade away. And it affects the story. Not at all. It adds nothing. There was never a question of, was Luke willing to die for his beliefs? It was he going to reconnect and come back to the Resistance and be a hero again? And he does. And then he fades away, and it was beautiful because it brings back the Twin Sunset, and it brings back the Twin Sunset theme,
so
and
it's
all very poetic. And if that had been the final shot of 9, I would have bawled my eyes out and said, "But you know what? After 40 years, that's an incredible end of the saga." I don't understand what it brought to 8, unless it's setting up something big for 9.
What if
but
9
for right
clears
now,
it up? 9 clears it up.
I don't know.
Is Ryan doing 9? Yes.
No.
Jurassic
World. Colin Trevorrow.
Sounds
Trevorrow.
Right, yeah.
Probably getting the name wrong, but he was supposed to do it. Was one of the many people who have been fired from Star Wars recently, and they brought JJ back to close it out. So it's JJ Abrams for 9. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's an interesting arc for a trilogy.
If he decides
1 and 3 and not 2,
will he decide to kind of reclaim some of those storylines and figure a way to bring them back, or just roll ahead with something totally different? I don't know.
J.J. Abrams in the house.
Yeah.
So, by the way, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Star Wars Talk. Okay, so then we get to Solo, a Star Wars story.
It was.
And I sat it out because...
You were not alone.
Star Trek fatigue has set in this household down the street,
and so has Star Wars fatigue.
Did I say Star Trek?
I think I heard
Star Trek fatigue is at medium pace as it's always been. Not has it shifted up or down, but Star Wars fatigue. We just decided to sit out Solo, partially because I feel like with us at least, with Star Wars, with Marvel, with Pixar, there's others in there, they have us hooked and we have to go see every one because you don't want to be like, oh, I saw 19 of the Marvel movies and I missed one. So we were just like, you know what, we're bailing out right now at Solo. I'll watch it on DVD when it comes out, or Netflix in America, but we sat it out, and apparently a lot of other people did too.
Yeah, which is strange. I went to see it, and I'm going to go see Star Wars, anything, obviously.
Right.
But I thought it was going to be bad. I went in with zero expectations. I thought the trailers looked pretty bad.
Well, that's also, being in Ireland before it, you did not get to example the core reactor pancakes at Denny's, which really set the stage.
I did not at all. And I wasn't even sure if I was going to understand the film without the pancakes for context.
Or the Fire Blaster burger.
I was trying to pull the name for that out of my head.
Twin Moons omelet or something.
I knew there was a Blaster burger.
Those pancakes were good as nuts.
Yes.
They had pop rocks in them. So good.
Pop rocks in anything. Mm-hmm. It makes it better. Something we were talking about pre-podcast.
Yes.
Back at the house.
During the rehearsal.
I thought it was actually going to be bad. Sat down, watched it, and said, wait a second, this is completely fun and exciting. This is a great little space heist movie. Everybody I went with had a blast. Get it? Star Wars. We had a blast. You can quote me on the Solo poster,
yes.
Except no one's going to go see it now. So it's funny. Nobody went to see it, and we have the first Star Wars bomb since 1977.
If we're not including Clone Wars, the Clone Wars movie
never
that
happened.
No one's seen.
So it was just a preview of the series.
Fair enough.
But
it was a movie.
Yeah, so now here's this Star Wars movie that came out that was really good and enjoyable. And nobody went to see it. So why? And I'm sure that's, Disney's had meetings every day about why since that happened. Rumors that they're changing up, the release schedule of the upcoming movies in some way. Maybe, who knows?
Well, first and foremost, we had a 6-month period between, less than 6 months.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Between movies, and that had never happened before.
No,
we are used to...
For Star Wars speed, that's blisteringly fast.
Well, sure, yeah. Because before Disney took them over, the quickest was like a 4-year... Like, what was the time between Empire and...
It was like 3 years-ish between the originals.
And even
and
the
then
other
we thought
ones,
it was done forever, and
yeah.
it wasn't until the late 90s when the new episodes
99,
came out.
02, and 05, I think.
I'm pretty sure you got that right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a couple years between the numbered episodes, but it felt super fast. Meanwhile, Ant-Man and the Wasp is how many weeks after Infinity War?
Right.
You know, a handful, and I'm like, oh, thank God. More Marvel.
Marvel. And there was
finally
one right before.
What do we even, what's the hold
Yes. Ant-Man. So, yes, Solo, I would go see it. Yeah. I will watch it.
Disney didn't help themselves at all, I think, by having it that close to Infinity War.
Right.
And then Deadpool 2 was another big summer release that was between those.
Whenever...
So it was like, hey, everyone going out to the theater a third time in 3 weeks, maybe Solo?
The original Star Wars was a summer movie.
Yes. May 25th.
Empire Strikes Back and Jedi were... All those three were summer movies.
I know the years. I'd have to... that feels right. Yeah. I'd have to look up the dates.
And, I mean, I remember them dominating pop culture for the summer.
Oh, yeah.
And Phantom Menace was a summer movie. That was, well, like, May.
Yeah.
I don't know. But... what's the Force Awakens?
I think Force Awakens started for Star Wars the December
Christmas
trend. Lord of the Rings kind of I think maybe pioneered the Christmas blockbuster.
Maybe. I mean, Christmas has always been the second biggest movie season.
It's always been big for holiday movies, family movies, that kind of thing.
You get greedy when you move it into the summer. When you're outside of summer and then you move it into, and you can take these two examples as a joke, but for real, just look at the first Paul Blart came out in January and was a huge, huge hit. And then they moved number 2 closer to summer and it fizzled. My other example is the Diary of a Wimpy Kid films. The first 3 were all hits in the spring, and then they got greedy with the summer in the 4th, and it fizzled. And actually, that's completely wrong. I think the 4th... I'm completely wrong on that. The 4th went back to spring. The first 2 were spring. The 3rd was summer. The 3rd was a bomb and killed the series for me. The bottom line is Alicia Silverstone is the mom in the new one, and it's a fantastic, wonderful, magical movie that everyone should see. Right?
That was the point of all of this, yes.
So, what else do we need to say about Solo? Was R2-D2 in it?
No.
I'm out.
This is the first Star Wars movie with no Anthony Daniels as C-3PO.
Wow.
And it bombed, and don't think for a second that he hasn't made that connection in his head.
Did we talk about the time you met Anthony Daniels at a salad bar? Did we talk about that on the last show?
I don't know. Can I tell the story again anyway?
Can you? I can't
I'll do the quick version.
So small.
So he's at a salad bar across from me, and I immediately recognize it's Anthony Daniels, and I hear R2-D2 beeping in my head, and I'm looking around thinking, like, does anybody else realize that C-3PO is right here? Because this is amazing. And I hear R2-D2 beep again, and I realize I'm actually hearing it faintly somehow, and the third time R2-D2 beeps, Anthony Daniels reaches into his pocket, pulls out his phone, it's his ringtone. He has the R2-D2 beep. And I love that he embraces that that much. That absolutely made my day. That was so good.
And then you cornered him in a broom closet and tried to
get his picture, and I did. And we have a picture, and we're both smiling.
Is there a picture of you and him?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I did not realize that.
I will pull that up.
What did he put on his salad, Brian? Real quick.
Space croutons.
Which is coming in 2019 from Disney.
And in Ireland, they call arugula rocket. Perfect for any Star Wars salad. Just to tie that all together.
Do you want more rocket on your salad, mate?
That's exactly how they sound.
And with that, we're going to close up shop. Producer Brian, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this with me. I flew
from Ireland just to record the podcast.
Make
and
sure
it was
you turn in your receipts
every second.
I was going to say I think this is the latest into the night I've ever recorded a podcast, but it's like 1:15 in the morning, and I think the last time you were on, we started.
I don't have an international flight tomorrow morning.
We started at 1:30 in the morning. So,
oh.
Anyway, folks, as always, Twitter at WYF Movie Podcast. Why do I bother telling people this? Nobody cares. I don't even care anymore.
I care.
Well, thanks, Brian.
Star Wars reference.
Hey, I got a bad feeling about this. Snakes. Why did it have to be space snakes?
Yep, that's what Han says.
Space owls. All right, folks, until next time, as always, Brian, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And as always, folks, it's khaki wishes and cookie dreams. So long.